Hi, kids. Well, do you know what time it is? You're right. It is story time. And welcome to I believe this is episode 9 of our story, Wonder, that we've been reading. This this story has been so interesting to me primarily because of all the perspectives that we have in it. It's not just merely a story of Augie, who unfortunately has this deformed face, but it's also a story of the people around him, his family, some of his relatives. We even got a chance to know his grandmother. Of course, she has since passed away. It's also a story about the other students that he goes to school with, because we're starting to see the story through their perspective. For example, Augie, we know how he feels when people talk about him, the things he says about him. But then Via, she's also been affected. Via, Augie's older sister. Her friends have started treating her really funny. They don't associate with her anymore, to the point that she's had to just cut them loose. And that's Miranda and Ella. They changed so much. They seem to have gone a different way. So now Via has a new friend that she associates with, Eleanor. Eleanor is someone she knew from elementary school, and I think they went to different middle schools, but now they're back together here in high school, and they're getting to know each other. Eleanor's quite smart, and so now that Via no longer associates with Miranda and Ella, she hangs out with Eleanor. And Eleanor is one of those girls who kind of sits at the lunch table where all the smart kids are. So through Eleanor, Via has been able to gain new associations. And she's been invited to the smart kids table. Whereas Miranda and Ella, their interest is different. They have lunch over there with the popular kids table. The story also involves Summer, her feelings. Now, you remember Summer so far has seemed to be the only kid there at school whose friendship with Augie is sincere. You know, she and Augie have lunch together at the summer table. They talk about things that they have in common, but all the other kids don't want anything to do with him. They call him names. They've got these games they play behind his back. But Summer's always defending him. In fact, you recall in the last episode, Summer was invited to a very exclusive Halloween party that was being thrown by Savannah. Now, Savannah's one of those really super popular girls there in high school. In fact, it's stated that she was one of the first girls in high school to get a boyfriend. So she invited Summer to come to her party. But so Summer goes to the party, but some of the people there, even Julian was at the party. And folks at the party is always asking her things like, why do you hang out with that freak? You know, and she has to defend him. He's not a freak. And you'd know that if you'd talk to him and get to know him, you know? And so while she's at the party, Savannah's trying to get her hooked up with Julian. She's telling her, hey, you know, Julian, he's kind of likes you over there. You want me to get him to come over and talk to you? Summer didn't want anything to do with Julian. She knows how terrible he is towards Augie and everything. So she made up an excuse about needing to go to use the restroom. And remember, while she was in the restroom, she called her mom and asked her mom to come pick her up, but said, don't ring the bell. Just let me know when you're here and I'll come meet you at the car. She snuck out of the party early just to get away from them. So her mom came, picked her up, and they went off to the Halloween parade downtown someplace and just had a good time. She didn't want anything to do with those folks. So that's where we're at right now. Let's pick up on our story and see what happens the next day when Summer gets to school and she runs into her friends that were at the party that night. Okay, in our book, Wonder. The next day at school, I told Savannah I had eaten something really bad, some bad Halloween candy, and had gotten sick, and then that's why I had gone home early from her party, and she believed me. Uh, there was actually a stomach bug going around, so it was a good lie. I also told her that I had a crush on someone else, and that wasn't Julian, so that she would leave me alone about that and hopefully spread the word to Julian that I wasn't interested. She, of course, wanted to know who I had a crush on, and I told her it was a secret. August was absent the day after Halloween, and when he came back, I could tell something was up with him. He was acting so weird at lunch. He barely said a word. He kept looking down at his food, and when I talked to him, like, he wouldn't look at me in the eye. Finally, I was like, Augie, is everything okay? Are you mad at me or something? No, he said. Sorry you weren't feeling well on Halloween. I kept looking for Boba Fett in the hallway. Yeah, I was sick. Did you have that stomach bug? Yeah, I guess. He opened a book and started to read, which was kind of rude. I'm so excited about the Egyptian Museum project, I said. Aren't you? He shook his head. His mouth was full of food. I actually looked away because between the way he was chewing, which was almost seemed like he was being gross on purpose, and the way his eyes were just kind of closed down, I was getting really bad vibes from him. What project did you get? I asked. He shrugged, pulled out a little scrap of paper from his jeans pocket, and flicked it across the table at me. Everyone in the grade got assigned an Egyptian artifact to work on for Egyptian Museum Day, which was in December. The teacher wrote all the assignments down on tiny scraps of paper, which they put into a fishbowl, and then all the kids in the grade took turns picking paper out of the fishbowl in the assembly. So I unfolded Augie's little slip of paper. Oh, cool, I said, maybe a little overexcited, because I was trying to get him psyched up. You got the step pyramid of Saqqara. I know, he said. I got Anubis, the god of the afterlife. And the one with the dog head? It's actually a jackal head, I corrected him. Hey, you want to start working on our projects together after school? You could come over to my house. He put his sandwich down and leaned back in his chair, and I can't even describe the look that he was giving me. You know, Summer, he said, you don't have to do this. What are you talking about? You don't have to be friends with me. I know Mr. Tushman talked to you. I had no idea what he was talking about. You don't have to pretend, is all I'm saying. I know that Mr. Tushman talked to some kids before school started and told them that they had to be friends with me. Well, he didn't talk to me, August. Yeah, he did. Well, no, he didn't. Yeah, he did. No, he didn't. I swear on my life. I put my hands up in the air so that he could see that I wasn't crossing my fingers. He immediately looked down at my feet, so I shook off my Uggs so that he could see I wasn't crossing my toes. You're wearing tights, he said accusingly. Yeah, so you can see my toes are flat, I yelled. Okay, you didn't have to scream. I don't like being accused of things, okay? Okay, I'm sorry. You should be. He actually didn't talk to you? Augie, okay. I'm really sorry. I would have stayed mad at him, but then he told me about something bad that had happened to him on Halloween, and I couldn't stay mad with him anymore. Basically, he heard Jack bad-mouthing him and saying really horrible things behind his back. Kind of explained his attitude, and now I knew why he'd been out sick. Promise you won't tell anyone, he said. I won't, I nodded. Promise you won't be mean like that to me again. Promise, he said, and we pinky swore. I had warned Mom about August's face. I had described what he looked like. I did this because I know she's not always good at faking her feelings, and August was coming over for the first time today. I even sent her a text at work to remind her about it. But I could tell from the expression on her face when she came home after work that I hadn't prepared her enough. She was shocked when she came through the door and saw his face for the first time. "Hi, Mom. This is Augie. Can he stay for dinner?" I asked quickly. It took a second for the question to even register. "Hi, Augie," she said. Of course, sweetheart, if it's okay with Augie's mother." While Augie called his mother on the cell phone, I whispered to Mom, "Stop making that weird out face." She had that look like she was watching the news and some horrific event had just happened. She nodded quickly, like she hadn't realized she was making a face, and was really nice and normal to Augie afterwards. After a while, Augie and I got tired of working on our projects and went to hang out in the living room. Augie was looking at the pictures on the mantle and saw a picture of me and Daddy. "Is that your daddy?" he said. "Yeah." "I didn't know you were, what's the word? Biracial." "Right, that's the word." "Yeah." He looked at the picture again. "Are your parents divorced?" I've never seen him, drop you off or anything." "Oh, no," I said. "He was a platoon sergeant, and he died a few years ago." "Whoa, I didn't know that." "Yeah," I nodded, handing him a picture of my dad in his uniform. "Wow, look at all those medals." "Yeah, he was pretty awesome." "Wow, Summer, I'm sorry." "Yeah, it sucks. I really miss him a lot." "Yeah, wow." He nodded, handing me back the pictures. I have you ever known anyone who died?" I asked. "Just my grandmother, and I don't really even remember her." "That's too bad." Augie nodded. "You ever wonder what happens to people when they die?" I asked. He shrugged. "Not really. I mean, I guess they go to heaven. That's where my grands went." "I think about it a lot," I said. "I think when people die, their soul goes to heaven, but just for a little while. Like, that's where they see their old friends and stuff and kind of catch up on old times. But then I actually think the soul starts thinking about their lives on earth, like if they were good or bad or whatever. And then they get born again as brand new babies in the world." "Why would you want to do that?" "Because then you can get another chance to get it right," I answered. "Their souls get a chance to have a do-over." He thought about what I was saying, and then he nodded. "Kind of like when you get a makeup test," he said. "Right. But they don't come back looking the same," he said. "I mean, they look completely different when they come back." Like, "Oh, yeah," I answered. "Your soul stays the same, but everything else is different?" "I like that," he said, nodding a lot. "I really like that, Summer. That means in my next life, I won't be stuck with this face." He pointed to his face. Then he said that, and he pointed to his face when he said that and batted his eyes, which made me laugh. "I guess not," I shrugged. "Hey, I might even be handsome," he said, smiling. "That would be so awesome, wouldn't it? I could come back and be this good-looking dude and be super buff and super tall." I laughed again. He was such a good sport about himself. That's one thing that I like the most about Augie. "Hey, Augie, can I ask you a question?" "Yeah," he said, like he knew exactly what I wanted to ask. I hesitated. I've been wanting to ask him this for a while, but I've almost lost the guts to ask. I've always lost the guts to ask. What? He says. I want to know, what's wrong with your face? Yeah, I guess if it's okay for me to ask. He shrugged. I was so relieved that he didn't seem mad or sad. Yeah, it's no big deal, he said casually. The main thing I have is this thing called mandibulofacial diastosis, which took me forever to learn how to pronounce, by the way. But I also have this other syndrome thing that I can't even pronounce. And these things kind of just morph together into one big super thing, which is so rare, they don't even have a name for it. I mean, I don't want to brag or anything, but I'm actually considered something of a medical wonder, you know? He smiled. That was a joke, he says. You can laugh. I smiled and shook my head. You're funny, Augie, I said. Yes, I am, he said proudly. I am cool beans. Over the next month, August and I hung out a lot after school, either at his house or my house. August's parents even invited Mom and me over for dinner a couple of times. I overheard them talking about fixing Mom up with a blind date with August's Uncle Ben. On the day of the Egyptian Museum exhibit, we were all really excited and kind of giddy. It had snowed the day before, not as much as it had snowed over the Thanksgiving break, but still, snow is snow. The gym was turned into a giant museum with everyone's Egyptian artifacts displayed on tables with little caption cards explaining what the thing was. Most of the artifacts were really great, but I have to say, I really think mine and August were the best. The sculpture of Anubis looked very real, and I had even used real gold paint on it. And August had made his pyramid out of sugar cubes. It was 2 feet high and 2 feet long, and he had spray painted the cubes with this kind of fake sand paint or something. It looked so awesome. We all dressed up in Egyptian costumes. Some of the kids were Indiana Jones type archaeologists. Some of them dressed up like pharaohs. August and I dressed up like mummies. Our faces were covered except for 2 little holes for our eyes and 1 little hole for our mouth. When the parents showed up, they were all lined up in the hallway in front of the gym. Then we were told that we could go get our parents, and each kid got to take his or her parent on a flashlight tour through the dark gym. August and I took our moms around together. I stopped at each exhibit explaining what it was, talking in whispers, answering questions. Since it was dark, we used our flashlights to illuminate our artifacts while we were talking. Sometimes, for dramatic effects, we would hold the flashlight under our chins while we were explaining something in detail. It was so much fun hearing all those whispers in the dark, seeing all the lights zigzagging around the dark room. At one point, I went over to get a drink at the water fountain. I had to take the mummy wrap off my face. Hey, Summer, said Jack, who came over to talk to me. He was dressed like the man from The Mummy. Cool costume. Thanks. Is the other mummy August? Yeah. Hey, do you know why August is mad at me? Uh-huh, I nodded. Can you tell me? No. He nodded. He seemed bummed. I told him I wouldn't tell you, I explained. It's so weird, he said. I have no idea why he's mad at me all of a sudden. None? Can't you at least give me a hint? I looked over where August was across the room, talking to our moms. I wasn't about to break our solid oath that I wouldn't tell anyone about what he had overheard at Halloween, but I felt bad for Jack. Bleeding scream, I whispered in his ear, and then walked away. Wow. Now, up to this point, we've been following this story through Summer's perspective. We're about to change and see it through Jack's perspective. Okay? Let's see what Jack has to say. So in August, my parents got this call from Mr. Tushman, the middle school director. And my mom said, maybe he calls all the new students to welcome them. And my dad said, that's a lot of kids he'd be calling. So my mom called him back, and I could hear her talking to Mr. Tushman on the phone. This is exactly what she said. Oh, hi, Mr. Tushman. This is Amanda Will, returning your call. Then there was a pause. Oh, thank you. That's so nice of you to say. He was looking forward to it. Then there was another pause. Yes. And then a pause. Yeah. And then a pause. Oh, sure. Then a real long pause. Oh. Uh-huh. And another pause. Well, that's so nice of you to say. And another pause. Sure. Oh. Wow. Oh. And then there was a super long pause. I see. Of course. I'm sure he will. Let me write it down. Got it. I'll call you after I've had a chance to talk to him, okay? Then another pause. No. Thank you for thinking of him. Bye-bye. And when she hung up, I was like, what's up? What did he say? And Mom said, well, it's actually very flattering, but kind of sad too. See, there's this boy who's starting middle school this year, and he's never been to a real school environment before because he was homeschooled. So Mr. Tushman talked to some of the lower school teachers to find out who he thought were some of the really, really great kids coming into the 5th grade, and the teachers must have told him that you were an especially nice kid, which I already knew, of course. And so Mr. Tushman is wondering if he could count on you to sort of shepherd this new boy a bit. Like, let him hang out with me, I said. Exactly, said Mom. He called it being a welcome buddy. But why me? I told you. Your teachers told Mr. Tushman that you were the kind of kid who's known for being a good egg. I mean, I'm so proud that they think of you so highly. Why is it sad? What do you mean? You said it's flattering but kind of sad. Oh, Mom nodded. Well, apparently this boy has some sort of, I guess there's something wrong with his face or something like that. Not sure. Maybe he was in an accident. Mr. Tushman said he'd explain a bit more when you come to the school next week. School doesn't start till September. He wants you to meet the kid before school. Do I have to? Mom looked a bit surprised. Well, no, of course not, she said, but it would be a nice thing to do, Jack. If I don't have to do it, I said, I don't want to do it. Can you at least think about it? I'm thinking about it, and I don't want to do it. Well, I'm not going to force you, she said, but at least think about it some more, okay? I'm not calling Mr. Tushman back until tomorrow, so you just sit with it a bit. I mean Jack, I really don't think it's that much to ask that you spend a little time with some new kid. It's not just that he's a new kid, Mom, I answered. He's deformed. That's a terrible thing to say, Jack. He is, Mom. You don't even know who he is. Yeah, I do, I said, because I knew the second she started talking about him that it was that kid named August. Wow. Looked like Jack didn't want anything to do with August from the beginning. And that friendly attitude that he was putting on around August was very insincere. And we know what sincerity is, and Jack didn't have it. Some are sincere, Jack isn't. Let's stop right there, and we'll pick up on this story as we continue in Jack's perspective of the story next time. Until then, you are strong, you are smart, and you are loved. Bye-bye.